Christianity is a very interesting religion because of how it's changed over time and the many splits that have been caused between Protestant and Catholic faith. It all started with one man named Martin Luther, a German monk who decided he needed to reform the Catholic faith. At a time of corruption in the Catholic Church, it was Martin Luther who stepped forward and attempted to reform the Church. At his time there were 3 popes, and he did not agree with the level of corruption that this presented, so he developed his 95 Theses and posted them on the wall of the Catholic Church in Germany. These theses led to new thinking across Europe regarding the authority of the Church, and caused many groups of people to branch off and follow him in his new sect of Christianity, and even caused them to create their own.
Martin Luther's 95 Theses was a great event because it was really the first time anyone had caused a widespread split from the Catholic Church. His 95 Theses were printed onto pamphlets and distributed throughout Europe. These theses ushered in a new era of thinking towards the Catholic Church. Before then, Christians pretty much thought that Catholicism was the only form of Christianity there could be. But now, people could mold Christianity into their own religion, forming the 4 main Protestant faiths: Lutheranism, Anglicanism, Calvinism, and Anabaptists. But with this great new Reformation also came tragedy. The Catholic Church saw this Reformation as a threat and started prosecuting Protestants. This, in many ways, meant hunting down and killing Protestants.
Although Protestants were persecuted, they still make up 40% of Christians and have their own concrete beliefs, which are that they are saved by God's forgiving grace, suffering is a form of evil, they believe in an all-powerful God who is perfectly good, loving, and holy, they believe in angels and devils, that salvation is a gift of God, and on the day of judgment, all people who believed and trusted in Christ go to heaven, and those who rejected God's gift go to a place of torment and separation from God. Some of the beliefs are to follow Christ, Bible first, love all people, and rejecting the use of images and statues in worship. To follow these beliefs, they perform rituals such as baptism. Baptism has been among the most important and contentious aspects of Protestantism. This practice embodies important theological differences that distinguish the branches of Protestant Christianity. They celebrate all major events in the life of Jesus and in the early church throughout the course of each year.
These core teachings of Christianity were all compiled into a few key events, such as the Roman letters of Paul and the Sermon on the Mount.
The Sermon on the Mount was most likely written by a Jewish Christian. During this time, which was in the late 1st century, Christianity was in its infancy. There were followers that were Jewish Christians and Gentile Christians. Historically, these groups didn't have social interaction. The Sermon on the Mount may not have actually happened, but the author chose a mountaintop setting to show that Jesus is a Moses-like figure. This would show that the Jews have a new leader, which would be Jesus. There are several parts of the Sermon on the Mount. The first and most famous is the Beatitudes. The Beatitudes contain 8 parallel statements that are in 3rd person and a 9th and final Beatitude, which is written in 2nd person to personalize the Beatitudes towards the audience. They talk about material wealth interfering with one's relationship with God while enduring various trials and reaching out to those who are experiencing these trials. This is a way to become closer with God. Beyond the Beatitudes is how Jesus interprets the laws in their essence. The author says Jesus has come to fulfill all the laws as an extension of their Jewish beliefs. All the previous laws can be boiled down into one thing, which is love, the ultimate law. When people love one another, they naturally will not break the commandments, nor will they do any minor actions that are hurtful towards others. The Sermon on the Mount also addresses prayer and its purpose. The reader is introduced to the major prayers called Our Father, which contains fundamental beliefs of praise of God, frugal living, forgiveness, and lack of judgment. Paul's epistles to the Romans is a letter that Paul wrote to the Roman Christians. Paul's conversion changed him from an intense persecutor of the Christians to a major advocate for their religion and one who was a driving force behind the spread of Christianity. He fought against containing the religion to just the Jews and pushed for its spread to the Gentiles. This letter is preaching the gospel to Jews and Greeks. He makes the point that everyone is justified by faith, not just the descendants of Abraham. When Jesus died on the cross, he made the ultimate sacrifice and justified everyone by faith. It used to be that offerings to God were made by the shedding of blood of various animals. By Jesus shedding his innocent blood, he has made the final necessary sacrifice. Therefore, Paul encourages all people to believe in Jesus, for believing in him and following him is the way to the kingdom of heaven. He tells the people that they should withstand the pain that will come from following Christ. Christians are to follow Jesus because he is the fulfillment of the Jewish laws that came before. Followers will love and care for one another and not worry about material gain in this world, but rather take care of one another so that they can achieve the kingdom of heaven.
Luther's original Reformation in 1517 caused four main sects of Protestantism to split from the Roman Catholic Church.
Lutheranism was pretty much the first Protestant faith and is directly related to the Reformation of Martin Luther, and has grown to become one of the largest denominations of Christianity. Anglicanism was formed around the same time as Lutheranism. It was formed when Henry VIII of England caught wind of Martin Luther's split and got his own ideas to split from the Catholic Church. At the time, the laws of Catholicism were very strict, and one of them was that you aren't allowed to divorce your wife. King Henry VIII was married to Catherine of Aragon and wanted to divorce her so he could marry Anne Boleyn, but since he was not allowed to divorce Catherine so long as he was a Roman Catholic, he then left the Catholic Church and created Anglicanism, or the Church of England. Henry VIII then made it law that all people of England had to be Anglicans. Calvinism originated in Scotland under the leadership of John Calvin in 1519. They split under similar pretenses as Lutherans. Calvinism gradually died out and became the Reformed churches and Presbyterianism in 1541. Anabaptism was started when preachers started a movement throughout Central Europe. This was the first of the radical reformations and started a chain of many more radical reformations to come.
Baptists, Calvinists, Lutheranists, and Anglicanists all have continued to split throughout history, and it's led to the thousands of sects of Protestantism that we have today. These splits have occurred from small things such as not agreeing with the practice of kneeling in church. All these splits have led to one thing, and that is the Catholic Church believing that they are the grandest and greatest Christian.
Quoting the USA Today, Pope Benedict XVI reasserted the universal primacy of the Roman Catholic Church. He approved a document recently stating Orthodox churches were defective and that other Christian denominations were not true churches. Pope Benedict, who attended Vatican II as a young theologian, has long complained about what he considers the erroneous or incorrect interpretation of the Council by liberals, saying it was not a break from the past, but rather a renewal of church tradition.
Presbyterian churches retain many of the same customs and procedures as most Catholic churches. This includes citation of creeds, whether the Nicene or Apostle, offerings, prayers, and singing of hymns. When viewing Mass, I find one of the biggest differences in rituals is the view on Eucharist. Catholics believe that in preparation of the gifts, the priest blesses the bread and wine to give an essence of Christ, which then they receive. On the other hand, Protestants receive this less frequently than Catholics, as they have different views on the Eucharist.
As we can all see, it's important to understand the different beliefs of Protestantism, because all around the U.S. there are people practicing the varying branches of the Protestant faith. Even if you do not agree with Protestantism, it's important to understand and respect their values.
Anglicanism was formed around the sun.
That's the bloopers.